with the quarterback that Tennessee has picked up, and now you add to it MacIntyre, you add Nico to that, what they've done with Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton. Is Tennessee quarterback U? Wherever Lincoln Riley was, that was quarterback U for a few years, right? And now, because of his defense, ironically, it seems like that slipped a little bit. So is Josh Heupel quarterback coach? Is Tennessee quarterback U? Is who's second if Tennessee's number one? Because right now it appears as if they're getting their pick of the litter.
I think Tennessee, well, let's break down why Tennessee's quarterback U. Because if you were investing, and by the way, today's not a good day to invest, guys, but if you were investing, or maybe it is a good day to invest because things are falling and you can get things at a cheap price.
That's actually true.
So today is a good day to invest. So anyways, if you were investing and quarterback U was a stock, Tennessee's where you invest because all the foundational groundwork is there for Tennessee to explode as quarterback U. It just hasn't surfaced yet. And here's what I mean by that. Tennessee has a generational quarterback who is about to start the season and about to be, in my opinion, the best quarterback in college football for the next 2 years. I don't know if you agree with me, Dave, but I think that Tennessee is about to be the best quarterback in college football far and away. I don't think it's close.
I think they'll have one of the top 5 quarterbacks. Maybe.
I think it's a disappointment. I think Nico Iamaelava will be. I think Nico Iamaelava will be better than Carson Beck by the end of the year.
Gosh, I tend to agree with that.
So there's that.
Go ahead.
They already had a quarterback 2 years ago who was generationally great in Hendon Hooker. You're right. They have George MacIntyre for 2025, Faizon Brandon for 2026. As we're discussing all of this, the same week Faizon Brandon commits to Tennessee, what happened in the NFL? Joe Milton started beating out Drake May at the Pats training camp. And now Joe Milton may be the favorite to start over the Pats' number 2 pick in the NFL because of how epic and elite he's been to this point. That's impressive, Dave. I just got to be honest. That's impressive. So when you factor in Joe Milton, when you factor in Hendon Hooker still with the Lions in the NFL, when you factor in Nico Iamaelava, when you factor in what's coming down the pipe, 2030 is going to come. 2030 is going to come. And I'm willing to bet Tennessee's had a Heisman winner, 2 All-Americans, maybe 3, and 5 starters in the NFL at quarterback by that point from Josh Heupel.
I think that's the next step. If you want to be quarterback U, you've got to prove it in the NFL level, right? You can't just have a bunch of good quarterbacks in college. You've got to have some guys have success at the NFL. The Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use that promo code HOOKED for 10% off. I mean, that's ultimately the thing, because here's what you don't want. And you may be a little bit too young to remember this, but do you remember Jeff Tedford?
Yep.
Okay. Jeff Tedford had a reputation, which you may be a little young to remember, of his quarterbacks just tanked in the NFL. They absolutely tanked. They were awful. And I don't remember all the names because I'm a little bit too young. I'm a little bit too young to remember. But
I remember Nate Longshore.
Okay, there you go. But you also remember Aaron Rodgers. Well, he fell in the draft to the 20 or so position because of Jeff Tedford. So that's the thing you don't want. I mean, that's the only potential backfire is if these quarterbacks don't have success in the NFL. But I'll tell you this, based off character alone, Hendon Hooker will at least have Josh Dobbs-like success, which is hang out, get your occasional starting chance. He will at least be that type of guy. And that, to me, is something to hang your hat on. Listen, Tyler Bray is making about, what, $1.8 million? Nobody's crying for him. So, listen, if you can hang your hat on a Hendon Hooker that's having success, any success in the NFL, that's a good start for Josh Heupel.
Thoroughly agree. Totally agree. And that's a huge win. And I'm thinking of the guys that Jeff Tedford had get drafted because it was kind of funny because I just realized that Kyle Bowler was one of his prize draft picks. Now, the difference is this. The NFL is a lot more different now. They've hired a lot more offensive coordinators. Back in those days, Dave, and you remember, and even as into the early 2000s, they still loved coaches that built their teams around their defense. And so they would find a quarterback and just throw him to the wolves and say, hey, go manage the game for us. Whereas nowadays, there are a lot more Packer-style teams willing to develop quarterbacks after they go to the NFL. So they may not be ready. I think there is. I think there are. I think a lot of coaches are willing to develop quarterbacks. Look, Bobby Petrino never had an NFL caliber quarterback until Lamar Jackson. Now, I think Lamar Jackson is massively overrated, but I do think he's worked out in the NFL because Baltimore has tailored everything to kind of work around him. Whereas, remember this, Dave? Remember Michael Vick in Atlanta? They tried to force the West Coast offense on him, which is still one of the dumbest things anyone's ever thought would work. And they tried to force him into the West Coast offense because they're like, that's the NFL offense. Nobody would think to do that with Michael Vick today if he were coming out right now.
No, it'd be a phenom because all these athletic quarterbacks that are running around now aren't as athletic as him. He was one of the craziest athletes. He's not there. To me, there's Bo, there's Dion, and then there's a level of a bunch of Mike Vicks. That's kind of how I see the greatest natural athletes. I'm curious. I'll just ask you, how do you see the greatest natural athletes?
I could agree with that. I think Dion is the most freakish, greatest natural athlete at quarterback. It was just, to this day, we still haven't seen anybody with his elusiveness was just as good as his straight line speed. And that was what was so underrated about him at quarterback during that time.
I want to ask one more question about this quarterback U and if Tennessee's quarterback U. So when we go back and look at Tennessee's quarterback U, what will be the most significant pickup of the 4 quarterbacks that we have discussed?
5, you mean? Don't forget Hendon, Joe, Nico, Faizon, and George.
Well, no, I was just discussing the guys that haven't really played yet, like Nico, Faizon, Merklinger, and George.
It's Nico. It's going to be Nico. It's going to be Nico.
I can't argue with that, but is Faizon second?
Well, if you think George MacIntyre is going to beat out Faizon, you would have him third.
I'm asking you.
I think Faison's third because I'm with you. I think George MacIntyre is going to win the job. I think Nico is Nico is number one because one, he was the first, the NIL money, what he represented, but also I think he's just the best of them. Look, I saw highlights of Faizon, and the truth of the matter is, Dave, Faizon, he's going to be the best red zone quarterback Tennessee ever has if he stays. What I mean by that is if you look at his passes, he's very accurate in the red zone, which is something that Heupel doesn't really value too much, honestly. But it's definitely an important trait if you're moving the ball. He probably is more accurate in the red zone than Nico, but he does not have the deep ball Nico has. I mean, again, guys, Nico, you will see this. He has the prettiest deep ball that of any quarterback Tennessee's ever had. And I'm going to say I'm already willing to say he's got a better deep ball than T. Martin or Heath Schuler had.
Wow. I can't go with you on Heath. I'll go back and look again, but
no, you're right. Maybe I'm a little young for Heath. But Heath was probably more athletic. I would have said Heath was more athletic. But when you say Heath moved the ball more over the middle of the field, right? We should have him on and ask him about that.
Yeah, we will. Today's tough question. Would you rather win the Heisman Trophy, gets 50%, win the 100 meters in the Olympics, 31%, be heavyweight champ, gets 18%. So the Heisman Trophy still wins. That's pretty incredible. I'm impressed. All right, so I asked this question. Tennessee's best recruiting pickup has been Nico or everyone else? Who do you think's winning?
Nico is going to be the greatest recruiting pickup in the history of Tennessee football.
Everybody else? You're talking about a lot of other players.
Nico is a bigger pickup than Peyton Manning.
Nico is a bigger pickup than Peyton Manning. You're willing to stand by that and go with that.
I'm going on that leg. Nico is a bigger pickup than Peyton Manning. When you were the one who taught me about how Heath Schuler actually was a bigger pickup than Peyton Manning, and you were right because there is no Peyton Manning without Heath Schuler. Yep. There's no line of quarterbacks without getting Nico. Nico is going to be better than all of them. And put it this way, let's talk Clemson real quick. Take out the character. I understand, and I'm not here to defend him. I'm just saying on the field and the impact on the program. Deshaun Watson is a bigger deal for Clemson history than Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yes.
And he was a better player, right?
Yes, definitely.
Nico is going to be. John agreed with us last week, Dave. You got to get on board. Nico with Josh Heupel is better than Peyton with David Cutcliffe in college.
We'll see. We'll see. The rules benefit your argument a lot. You got to give me that. I mean,
yes. Now
like,
I will say
if you're playing to 11, you got to spot me like 3-5 points or something, because the rules help you a lot.
No, they do. No, I will say if you put Heath in this system, Heath actually might be better, because even though his deep ball is not as pretty as Nico, he actually does a lot of other things better. Even if he may not have the same deep ball, but like I think he actually may be the more perfect fit for Heupel's system. But we'll never know. That was 30 years ago.